Happy Easter. Thank you. Easter is all about life and death and life in the midst of death. There's a place in the Hebrew Scriptures, the book of Deuteronomy, where God says, I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses. And now choose life so that you and your children may live. So I'm talking about choosing life today in all the big and little ways that we are offered that choice in our lives. Sometimes the choice is set before you in great big flaming letters a foot high. It's very, very obvious. Are you going to choose life or death today? And I feel like that was the choice that was laid out for the cellist of Sarajevo when he made his choices. Now, his name was Vedran Smailovic, and he was the principal cellist of the Sarajevo Opera. He also played in string quartets and orchestras. He was a well-known cellist in the town. Sarajevo was the capital of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and this was during the time in the early 90s when the former Yugoslavia was breaking up. And there were ethnic tensions and lots of factions fighting against each other, very hard to keep track from all the way over here. You just knew that there was a misery and trouble there. Sarajevo was a town of a modern town, about 500,000 people. They had skyscrapers, they had glass-walled office buildings, they had Starbucks, they had everything. And it was surrounded by troops that laid siege to the city. Nothing could come in, nothing could go out, no one could go out. And so it became a daily struggle inside the city to find clean water and to find food to eat. The siege lasted 4 years. That's longer than the siege of Leningrad. This is the longest siege of a capital city ever in the history of modern warfare. It was long and miserable. And right at the first month of the siege, the first months, it started in early 1992. In May 27th, 1992, the snipers were picking off innocent folks who were walking around the town. 5,500 non-soldiers died in that siege. And the mortars were being lobbed by the troops that were besieging the city. The mortars came flying into town and exploded, left big craters, and lots of people mangled. May 27th, there was a bakery down the street from Vedran Smailovic's apartment that was still in operation, and people would line up for bread every day. So there was this line in the street, down the street from him, and a mortar landed right in the middle of the line. And there was complete chaos and carnage. And he was trying to help the wounded people. And he says he thought to himself in his anguish, what can I do? I have to stand against this, but I'm not a politician, I'm not a soldier, I don't know what to do. What I have is my music, and what I have is my cello. And so the next day, he put on his black tails, and he put on his starched white shirt with the white bow tie as if he were going to give a concert. And he went to give a concert in the middle of the mortar hole where the 22 of his neighbors had died. And he played a piece called Adagio in G minor, which was by Albinoni, a Baroque composer. The reason he chose this piece is because the piece was put together from a fragment discovered in the ruins of Dresden after the city had been firebombed. They found this fragment with the basso continuo in there and the theme already written in, and the guy who found it finished the piece and attributed it to Albinoni. And so this piece had a tremendous meaning of life coming out of literally the ashes. And every day he played his cello, of course, because he was a cellist of that rank and caliber. But where he chose to play every day was in a different bombed out section of the town, and he would play for funerals, which were often targeted by snipers. There's a novel that has a character based on him, which he's outraged by. One of the reasons is that this cellist plays every day in the same mortar hole for 22 days in a row at the same time of day, and he says, "What am I, stupid? I'm not gonna play the same time every day. There are snipers out there. I have to vary my schedule." When news of what he was doing leaked out, people would gather to hear him and appreciate what he was doing. Reporters began interviewing him and commenting about his heroism and his bravery, because he was setting himself up to get killed by a sniper or to get exploded by a mortar. And they said, "Aren't you crazy to be playing in the middle of the bombing?" And he said, "You ask me, am I crazy for playing the cello? Why do you not ask if they are not crazy for shelling Sarajevo?" He chose life. He didn't get a gun and start shooting people. He got his cello and started bringing his art and bringing his presence and bringing beauty to the places where there had been death. Because he could, and because he was brave, and because it made a stark contrast for the whole world to see. This is not your normal response to a war. Here's somebody who's brave enough to choose life. So that choice for him was written in flaming letters. The choice for others of us is a little more subtle. I know we're not being shelled here, but we have people whose lives feel like they're being shelled. I have an acquaintance named Marcia that I've never met in person. She doesn't take visitors, but she's dying. And when I met her in 2007, I met her because I used one of her poems in a church newsletter. And this is the poem I used. See if you don't like it. It's called "Fearing Paris." Suppose that what you fear could be trapped and held in Paris. Then you'd have the courage to go everywhere in the world, all the directions of the compass open to you, except for the degrees east or west of true north that lead to Paris. Still, you wouldn't dare put your toes smack dab on the city limit line. You're not really willing to stand on a mountainside miles away and watch the Paris lights come up at night. Just to be on the safe side, you decide to stay completely out of France. But then danger seems too close even to those boundaries, and you feel the timid part of you covering the whole globe again. You need the kind of friend who learns your secret and says, "See Paris first." I love that poem, and I used it in the newsletter, and then about a month later, I get this package from California, and it has a book of her poems in it with a letter, and she said, "I was ego surfing the internet, and I saw that you'd used one of my poems in your church newsletter, and I just wanted you to have some more poems." And I sent her a thank you note and sent her one of my books, and then I didn't hear from her for a really long time, and I thought, maybe I was a little forward sending her one of my books, like, "Oh, you're a writer, I'm a writer too," and maybe I should have just said, "Thank you so much for your poems." And then I decided to call her to thank her. And I got the answering machine, and I was saying, "Hi, Marcia, this is Meg Barnhouse," and I heard the receiver pick up, and then this squeal, like, "Wee!" And we had a good conversation. I told her how much I enjoyed the poems that she'd sent, and she said, "Oh, I can send you everything for free. I'll just send it to you." And she said, "But there's just, some of the poems are..." "What?" I said. "What?" "They're kind of spicy," she said. "Yahoo!" I said. "Oh, well, that's out of the way then," she said. experienced a conversion a couple of years ago, she said, that really heated up her marriage. And I said, like a conversion to... She said, oh, I don't even want to say, because you might think it's so weird, but I'm not like that. I mean, it's Roman Catholicism. But she said, some religious people are so terrible. I said, don't worry, it doesn't sound weird to me. I know many Catholics who are very nice. How did that heat up your marriage? I said. She said, well, this new dimension to me, my husband just finds me a lot more interesting now. And she started to laugh, and her laugh started low and ended up high, kind of like a waterfall running backwards. She just had this lovely laugh. She'd been married 37 years to her husband. And last night, she'd had this dream, she said, that she and her husband were making out in a parking lot, scandalizing the passersby. And I liked talking to her. She was very earthy and thoughtful. And she mentioned in passing that she was sick. And I said, well, I hope you feel better soon. She said, oh, Meg, I'm not going to feel better. I'm dying, you see. She said, my liver's shutting down. My kidneys have already shut down. She said, I had hospice in a couple of years ago. They stayed 6 months and then they left. She said, I just pray all the time now. I don't pray to be healed, and I don't usually pray to die, except when I'm hurting really badly. She said, but when I'm appreciating, I don't hurt as bad, and I'm not hurting at all right now, so I must be appreciating very much. And she said, I just pray to feel love for God and feel God's love for me. And she said, it's a pleasure. She said, if you love somebody and they don't bring you pleasure, then that's a lie. I said, that's like some people saying they love a God that they're really scared of. I tell people, don't believe in a God who doesn't believe in you. She said, yes, or even like you. She said, that's what religion is about for her, just loving Jesus and having Jesus love her. And I said, yeah, it's like that for me, except I call it spirit. And she said, same thing. I said, yeah. She said, I ask to be shown heaven every day, and I've seen it a lot. She said, it's different every day. Yesterday, heaven was a white Rolls Royce, and I was in the back seat. She said, I've never been inside a Rolls before, you understand, but I could smell the leather. She says, I know I could have a heart attack any moment, and so I drive a big old Mercury, and I drive it 25 miles an hour, so if I have a heart attack, I won't hurt anybody. Our Unitarian forebearer, Henry David Thoreau, said, when it is time to die, let us not discover that we've never lived. My friend Marcia is coming to her time to die, but she is living. She's choosing life. And you don't have to be actively dying to see this choice of life or death in front of you. It's very subtle for most of us. We have moments through the whole day where we have a choice of where we put our focus. Am I going to focus on things that are going well, or am I going to focus on the things that are going badly? Am I going to focus on the parts of me that are healthy or the parts of me that are in pain? Am I going to focus on the words someone said to me that were crappy or the words somebody said to me that were encouraging? Am I going to say words that are going to poke somebody or irritate them or make them feel terrible? Or am I going to say words that make people feel great? Am I going to choose life, or am I going to choose death? Am I going to devolve into a cycle of fearful grumpiness? Sometimes yes. Or am I going to try to fight that and be positive? For me, sometimes trying to be positive makes the grumpiness worse. I don't know how it works for you. But you just ask yourself in every moment, what would it be like to choose life in this moment, and see if you can't do it. It is our purpose here to become soulful people, to become people who are living spirited lives. Smailovic, if you want to know what happened to him, he escaped the city in 1993 and moved to Northern Ireland. I know. He lives in a backwater of a town. He still composes, of course. He still plays his cello. He's very, very impatient with the whole celebrity peacemaker thing. He says, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a peacemaker. I'm nobody's hero. I just did what I did for a little while, and now I'm doing other things. And don't write any more books about me. It is our job as people who come to church to try to become more open-hearted, more rooted in compassion, people who choose life more often, people who learn how to live well, and people, who learn how to die well. Because it's going to happen to almost everybody here. I say that because some of y'all are still in denial and no one likes the enemy of their illusions. And I want to say one way of choosing life is to help other people, and one way of choosing life is to become easy to help. Because most of us are helping people, we are helpers. But when it comes time for being helped, we get a little cranky about it, or we're resistant. And I just want to say, if you don't get good at being helped, when you are old, you will be such a pain for the people around you. So practice before that. Being helped graciously. Mary Oliver captures all of what I'm trying to say in her poem, When Death Comes. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measlepox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. And when it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. So you lions of courage, precious to the earth, don't end up feeling like you simply visited this world. I am not saying live each moment as if it were your last, because that sounds really exhausting and stressful. But live open-hearted and connected to the brotherhood and sisterhood of everything, and know that life is unstoppable and will go on, and it will go on without those you love, and it will go on without you, and that is good for us to picture happening, life itself unstoppable, and we are part of it now, and we will be part of it forever, and that is good news.